thing is, that is not the sea. It's a lake formed by the Rhine. This is some angular shit. We are flying along at an angle of about 100 degrees. Good afternoon, friends. So, welcome to Munich. Yeah, I'm currently headed to the Frauenkirche, which is the rather epic symbol of Bavaria, the Munich Cathedral, the Church of Our Lady. I arrived in Munich a few days back and chilling out mostly so far. It's a bustling city with a fairly awesome history, both light and of course very, very dark. So, enjoying myself very much so far. Anyway. So here we are at the Frauenkirche. Really quite an imposing building. It's essentially not just a landmark in Munich, it is a Bavarian legend, a Bavarian landmark. There was a church previously, as in many places in the 12th century, but this place construction started in 1468 and only took 20 years. It was the architect and overseer of construction was Jorge von Hausbaum. And it's very characteristic. It's very late Gothic. When we go inside, you'll see the soaring columns that are indicative of the Gothic style. You can't actually see them very well from here, but they have characteristic rounded caps on the towers. The towers are a touch under 100 meters tall. The south tower's 98.45 meters, and the north is minimally higher at 98.57. The caps are, as I say, rounded. They weren't added on until 36 years after construction was completed, but they really are a classic piece of the Munich skyline. Just inside the door, there is a very famous footprint. It's said that it was the devil himself. Apparently, he made a bet. The devil made a bet with the architect, the aforementioned Jorg. The bet was for his soul, and the bet was that he bet that if there were any windows in the cathedral at all, Jorg would lose his soul. And Jorg, being a smart cookie, he took the devil in and said, "Stand here and check it out." And the columns blocked off every view of the window, and the devil stamped his foot in frustration and gave up on the bet. Then, apparently, he took a step forward, realized what had happened, and turned himself into wind out of frustration. And there is a slight breeze, apparently, at all times in this particular place. Anyway, gonna go in. I'm standing in the door, holding the door open with my foot as about 500 people walk past me. Yeah. A gap.
Confirmation. Yeah. It is the first.
Okay, so today there is a fairly serious mass going on. If you look at the congregation are fairly dressed up. It also means that they've closed the South Tower because of mass. So I'm going to come back, I think, tomorrow and climb. Climb being the operative word. It's 100 meters tall, very nearly. But it is really very impressive. Unusually, though, it's not. The buildings close in quite closely around it, which did surprise me slightly. But then again, I'm used to, Italy. Anyway. So friends, welcome to Marienplatz. Marienplatz, St. Mary's Square, is figuratively and literally the heart of Munich. This is the crossroads between the original north, south, east, west trade roads in the middle of Old Town. The entire city is built around this place, and it's where everyone comes. Behind me is New City Hall, which, despite the way it looks, is actually very new. It was only completed in 1909, obviously in a very, very OG Gothic style. The Old Town Hall is just around that corner. Just up there, you can see the apex of the two towers of the Frauenkirche from earlier, the Welschenhaube, which is the name for these rounded caps on the towers that are very unusual and are a very dominant part of the Munich skyline. But behind me here, this is the Marienstraube, which dates back far, far older. It was erected in 1638 as a memorial to the 30 Years' War. Ironically enough, the 30 Years' War, we're not even 70% over by that point, because they went on until 1648. But that's neither here nor there. The 30 Years' War, as I'm sure you'll know, was one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. I mean, it was really the culmination of what Henry Tudor, when he went Protestant and created his own church, the rollout of the Protestant church across Europe was really the reason for it. It was almost exclusively a German conflict, but it began in 1618 in Prague. The defenestration of Prague, when several people were thrown out the window. The reason being was that the Emperor Ferdinand had been ousted and replaced with Frederick, a Protestant, and that caused massive upsets across the entire region. So, all of the different, because of course Germany at the time was not unified, and this being the capital of Bavaria was a major staging ground for many conflicts. It was mainly German, the various German states fighting amongst themselves after the Reformation of the Holy Roman Empire. Insanely destructive. It's estimated that up to 8 million people, soldiers and civilians, lost their lives as a result of this conflict. And at the time, that was a massive number. Experts do say that potentially up to 50% of the German population as a whole lost their lives either directly because of being killed by the military or by plague or famine. Mary up there is dressed in very regal fashion with a crown and a sceptre and all. Down here on the 4 points are represented the 4 curses of the period: heresy, famine, plague and war. As I say, the irony is, of course, the war wasn't over at that point. but that's why that's standing there in the middle of the plaza. Anyway, I think the Glockenspiel is just about to kick off, so I'm going to sign off and go and find that. So while we're waiting, I've got another 5 minutes or so. There are 2 levels to the Glockenspiel. The top one represents the wedding of the Bavarian Duke Wilhelm V and Renate of Lorraine. There was apparently a huge joust in February 1568, where we're standing now. So a massive medieval party with jousting. And the Bavarians were triumphant over their opponents from Lorraine, which probably annoyed the new Duchess. The bottom level is the shuffle dance, which is after a plague. The barrel makers, apparently, they were the first to venture out in the streets, and they were dancing to entertain the survivors.
Let's go.
That was quite fun, actually. Right, so behind me is St. Michael's. St. Michael's is a Jesuit church, so Catholic. Construction began in 1597. It is the largest Renaissance church this side of the Alps. And for that simple reason, it had a huge impact in southern Germanic architecture for the next 2 centuries. It was quite the big hit, actually. And there are dotted around this city later buildings that clearly have mimic it in style. Evening, friends. So I am at Killian's Irish Pub, which won't be a patch on the James Joyce on a day like this, but never mind. I'm flying solo, as I am perpetually, of course. There might be 2 Swedish kids from my dorm who are coming along. And if you remember, I said that the cathedral was, the buildings closed in around it quite tightly. Yeah, that's the cathedral. And it's just surrounded by bars and restaurants and hotels. Anyway, go England.